make money. You sell an advert, it costs you 10,000 euros. It takes one person to call an advertiser, say, hi, Bonacqua, do you want an advert in the newspaper? Yeah, 10,000 euros, in you go. To make 10,000 euros online is really, really difficult. You need about 20 people making 100 phone calls trying to sell to different people. It's really difficult.
Why does it work different when it's the same, like advertisers also online? So there is a lot of readers.
The question was, why is it more expensive, or why is it more expensive to advertise in a newspaper, the paper version, than it is online? And why is it so much harder? It's much harder because, it's a really good question, it's much harder because in the old days, if you wanted to reach Guardian readers, and I've described them to you, the only way you could do it was through the newspaper, because you didn't know where they were. But now, because of understanding exactly where you go, if you're a Guardian reader, you go to lots of other websites. Now, if the Guardian charges, the other websites are much cheaper to advertise. So if I'm an advertiser, I'm going to advertise on those other websites because I know that you, the Guardian reader, are going there, but it's much cheaper. If the Guardian charges 10 times the price than another website, it has to prove that the advertising is 10 times more effective, which it simply can't do. And the prices of online advertising came in very low. It was a big mistake 10 years ago. Everyone thought this is a very cheap medium. It is cheap, but it didn't have to be. And the market started low. Interestingly, for those of you, I don't know if any of you buy any, do any of you download ebooks? Yeah, any books online? Some do. Have you noticed how the price of an ebook is the same as the prices of paper book? It's really interesting because they have learnt from other businesses that the digital thing drives a bus through revenue. So they are starting with high prices. Music had the same problem. Music had exactly the same problem. Music was different because it was about piracy, but people are saying, do you know what? I'm not going to pay the same. I'm not going to pay 15 euros for the latest Radiohead CD when I can either get it for nothing or buy it online for 2 or 3 euros. So the digital issue has brought prices crashing down because it's a very simple supply and demand issue. The supply of advertising inventory online is endless. In a newspaper, it's a fixed number of pages, so the price goes up. If you're an advertiser and you're an advertiser and you both want the same page and I'm the newspaper, I'm going to say, how much do you want? How much do you want? How much? The price keeps going up. But online, there's endless supply of advertising. So it's a basic, fundamental supply-demand issue. I hope that answers your question. So I'll go back to that. In 20 years, the Guardian may not exist. But if you ask Alan, he'll say it doesn't matter, as long as we can take the revenue over. So the key themes I want you to think about, if you're thinking about it, are what's the business model? Is it open versus closed media? Is it authority versus involvement from a journalistic point of view? Are you going to be the authority or are you going to let people in? The truth is it should be a combination of both. What is the future platform? No one knows what the future platform is. It's going to be a combination of phones, computers, tablets, newspapers. You have to be on them all. And your brand is global, whether you know it or not. A really funny thing happens in America. We know the Guardian became very big in America after the planes crashed into the Twin Towers, because the American media did not query particularly well the action that George Bush took next. Now, we all know the benefit of hindsight, whether you agree with what he did or didn't do, doesn't matter. But the newspapers didn't really question what he was doing. The Guardian, funnily enough, did question what he was doing in terms of the response to 9/11. And an incredible thing happened where suddenly in America, people started reading The Guardian. We didn't know this was happening. We realized after the event. And imagine, in London, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 9 o'clock in the morning, you can see a map of Guardian readers in America. It's very funny. You start on the East Coast at 9 o'clock in the morning, and New York, very liberal city, lots of Guardian readers. You go over America, you go to Philadelphia, quite a few Guardian readers. You get to Texas, not so many. Absolutely none in Dallas. and quite a lot in Houston and San Antonio because they're both university towns. You then go across America, and it's like a wilderness of Republican nothing. Absolutely no one reads The Guardian between Dallas and Las Vegas, except a few, in their minds, weirdos. You then get to Las Vegas, and you keep going over, and you get to San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles, boom, lots of people read The Guardian. And so it's exactly the same people around the world who are reading The Guardian. And the other people who read The Guardian are the people who have a different political persuasion but want to know what the opposition are thinking. So listen to the crowd, and The Guardian listens to the crowd all the time in terms of what they should, what they shouldn't be doing, and don't ignore the social networks. Guardian is the biggest newspaper I know on Facebook and on Twitter, particularly on Twitter. The Guardian technology correspondent, this is one woman, has 1.8 million followers on Twitter. It's incredible. And if you go to Guardian's Twitter feed, go and have a look. It is unbelievable the amount of people who follow The Guardian. And they follow The Guardian for all the reasons I've talked about and all the reasons I've shown you. And it has been the most incredible distribution system for The Guardian newspaper, both Twitter and Facebook, but particularly Twitter. And there are millions of people out there following The Guardian on Twitter, which in 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago was unimaginable. Because the view of The Guardian is you should distribute your content absolutely everywhere. Because people aren't going to come to you, you have to go to them. And that is how they've built this massive online project. And it is far, far bigger than it technically should be. And I want to spend how many of you have Twitter accounts? Okay, if you do nothing else after today, can you all, I don't work for Twitter, I don't care if you do Twitter, set up a Twitter account, okay? It takes about 30 seconds. How many of you are on Facebook? And now Facebook is much more social, okay? Twitter is much less social. I think Twitter is much more interesting. And just go and set it up, and then start following people. You can follow anyone. You can follow journalists. You can follow pop stars, whoever you want. People think it's a place where silly things happen. It isn't. It's a place where all this happens. It's an incredible form of distribution. It's brilliant. This Guardian technology correspondent is basically unknown. You wouldn't know her. 1.8 million people follow her. And she's done that through a series of networks where people retweet, follow. It's incredible. It's where things happen first. I don't know about you, but 5 years ago, I used to wake up in the morning and I would look at the Guardian newspaper, you would look at the equivalent here, then I'd look at the BBC just to find out what's happening in the world. And then about 2 years ago, I started following Twitter, and I would look at the Guardian, BBC, then Twitter. Now, I look at Twitter first, then the Guardian, then the BBC, which is incredible. And I do it because Twitter, I follow people whose opinions I value and whose opinions are interesting, and it's where breaking news happens. If you think of the big breaking news stories, the Gaddafi story, any breaking news story now, it's invariably on Twitter. And it's not idiots talking about it, it's people like you, like me, journalists, whatever. So anyone you think is interesting, journalists, whatever your thing is, you can follow footballers. I follow Robin van Persie, I follow Jack Wilshere, they talk rubbish. I follow the Guardian editor, he talks sense. I follow journalists, I follow all sorts of people. It's brilliant. And it opens a window onto a world where you can choose the content that's coming through, and it's brilliant. So whether you do it or not, I don't know, but I advise you to. As a search engine, it rivals Google. It's a formidable aggregation tool. It's an unbelievably brilliant form of marketing. And at the Tate, which is the job I do now, we have 500,000 followers on Twitter, and we Twitter all the time. And they look at it, and they retweet it, and they use it. One of the funny things we do, one of the big problems in galleries is that people like you don't go to galleries very much. And we want you to go to galleries more. So one of the things we do on our Twitter feed is every Friday, silly things, every Friday we look at what the weather's going to be like at the weekend. And we send out a picture on Twitter, a picture from the gallery that best represents what the weather's going to be like that weekend. People love it. They open it, they look at it, and it's a way of engaging with the gallery. It's much more diverse. You get a really big range of opinions. It's a very level playing field between people, has a very long attention span. It creates brilliant communities. You will follow people, you will go to places, and you'll go on journeys that are incredibly exciting. So just get a Twitter account. If you don't like it, blame me, but I think you will like it. And the rest is boring. So I'm going to stop there. So I hope that was interesting. I'm happy to take, I don't know how much time we have, but I'm very happy to take questions.
Well, it's like 3 questions, so we'll have to leave this room very soon, unfortunately. So go ahead.
When will you come next time?
When you invite me. I'd love to come back.
How can you use these Facebook or Twitter for a product that is more kind of more conservative, not boring, but for only some group of people, like maybe high earning, and you can like do things like with the music songs and that kind of stuff. So how to use these media like Facebook and Twitter to?
You can use it for anything because people will choose to follow you. If you write interesting stuff, doesn't matter what product it is, people will choose to follow you. Always.
You work for Tate Galleries, and what do you think about people meters?
About?
People meters.
What do you mean a people meter? Sorry.
It's,
I'm sorry.
I think you mean people metrics? The way how to measure how many people are watching each channel.
Oh, the question was, what do I think of people meters? I trust them. You have to trust them because statistically, in England, you can work out there are is a population of 52 million, and I think 8,000 homes have people meters. And from those 8,000 homes, they determine who's watching what. You have no choice but to trust them. They're potentially flawed, but they work. One more question, lady.
Because you pictured Guardian as a perfect newspaper, I would be interested about your critic side of looking at it. Like, what is to improve there then?
What's to improve? Oh, okay. The critics would say they're really left-wing. They are too liberal. I love all those things, which is why I said at the beginning, if you asked 100 people in England, about 70 people would hate The Guardian, and about 30% would think it's fantastic. And so it polarizes opinion. So all its good things for other people are all its faults.
Yeah, but I mean not like public, but I mean you.
Go on.
Because you have the inside view, the newspapers.
Okay, I'd criticize it on one thing, is it's a bit slow on making decisions sometimes. Because the problem with the liberal community is they really want to talk. Chat. But in the end, I think that's a good thing because you end up with a better decision in the end. So every question you ask, I'm going to end up positive. Because I'll tell you they're negative, but I'll end up thinking, do you know what? I think it's an incredible thing. Even though I don't work there anymore. Okay, one more question, yeah?
Okay. How did you find out what your audience wanted to read or to have?
We have a panel of 50,000, and this is another thing you can do because of online. You couldn't used to do this. About 4 years ago, I set up a panel of Guardian readers. Guardian readers who only read digital, Guardian readers who only read the newspaper, Guardian readers who read it 7 days a week, some who read it 1 day a week, some who don't buy it but they steal it off their friend. 50,000 people. And we often would ask them. We would never say, what do you want to read? They'd never, ever, ever ask that question, ever. Because they don't understand the question. What you need to do is you need to give them some stimulus and say, what do you think of this? So one of the things we might do, if we're doing a poster for one of these adverts, we might show them 2 or 3 different adverts that we created. And we would say, which one of these 3 things is most likely to make you buy the paper? And we'd ask 100 people, and 70 would say this one, blah, blah, whatever, 20 would say that, and 10 would say that. You'd be an idiot not to go for the 70. So we do a lot of research, we did a lot of research, and at the Tate I'm doing exactly the same thing. But you have to be very careful with research, because you have to be very clear what you're about. And you have to go in with my view, with a strong point of view, and feel the response back. Don't go in saying, hi, what do you think we should do? Do you think we should do this? Do you think we should do that? I don't think that works. You need to be really strong.
Did you use
Do we use
blogs
for
that search.
which search? I'm sorry.
About people.
Oh, on Guardian readers, partly blogs. But if you ask a newspaper audience, if you email them or call them or put an advert in the paper saying we're setting up a research panel, they will come to you so fast. Because it goes back to because the truth is, the audience owns the newspaper, not you. And the newspaper is basically an intelligent thing where its readers want to get involved. So if you ask Guardian readers, could you get involved? You can't keep them away. You know, they want to be involved.
Okay.
Last question. Come, lady here.
I want to ask you if the Guardian wrote about revolution on Islam.
Oh yeah, very much so, very much. And the Guardian was brutally critical of the. Do you mean Iceland? Yeah, a lot. And the Guardian wrote a lot about the facts, and then once the facts came to pass, they were incredibly critical of the banking rules that led to that crisis. So yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.